All right, let's see how fast I can do this demo. This is going to be a demo on how you can use VS Code, Google Cloud Shell, and Devcontainers to do open source development on just about any Windows workstation where you can install VS Code. There's going to be a whole bunch of things that you need ahead of time, and the video will quickly cover those. So let's just jump into it. For things you have to install. You're going to have to install VS Code if you don't already have it installed. Users can do the installation. Just you want that guy right there. The other thing you're going to have to install is the Google Cloud CLI. You can click that guy right there and do the installation. Just the default installation is fine. Again, you do a user install. The other thing that you will need to do is you need a Google or a Gmail account, and you're going to use that account. So I use my Gmail one. You're going to use that account to log into console.cloud.google.com. This is the portal for the Google Cloud. Just for the sake of time, I've already done those installations for us. And this is the default. There's a welcome page you normally see, but this is the default page for VS Code. And on the left side here, we are going to install some extensions. So the extensions don't take very long to install, but the first one we're going to install is called Cloud Code. Cloud Code. There we go. And Google's renamed it. They call it Gemini, but it's Cloud Code. There we go. We're going to install that. And we are going to install another one called Remote Development. This is a pack that Microsoft does that allows you to connect to different workstations and different terminals. Sorry, I should say that. Different virtual machines. So we're going to install that package. And the last one is called Devcontainers. This is also a Microsoft package, and it's already installed. So normally this would just be install. You would install it. It'd be fantastic. So now that we have those extensions installed, we need to jump back to the Google Cloud. And what you're going to do is from this page, you're going to create a new project. And to do that, you're going to click here. And normally you would select your organization and you're going to click New Project. So I've already created my project. It's called Demo or Devcontainers. But it's just like that. You click Demo, set your location and no organization. You click Create. You don't need a billing account. It'll create automatically for you, and it'll jump you back to a page like this. Now, what we're trying to do is we are trying to connect Visual Studio to the Cloud Shell. And what the Cloud Shell is a virtual machine that Google Cloud runs for you when you're accessing the portal. And you can see it here. You just click Activate the Cloud Shell, and this is going to spin up as it's going. And just for the sake of what is the Cloud Shell? It's a VM that Google runs for you. It's super basic. It has one CPU, 2 gigs of RAM, 5 gigs of storage, and it's a Debian-based image that Google manages for you. The whole point of this environment is to do development work in this space. So as part of the Cloud Shell, Google also has a code editor or like an IDE editor that looks very similar to VS Code that runs in your browser. This demo is not going to cover that, but it's another option if you don't have access to VS Code. So yeah, we've done those downloads. We've created those projects. We're going to go back here. And again, I'm just going to sign out. I'm already signed in. So we're just going to sign out of Cloud just so you see the same thing that I would see. So normally this is what you'd see. You would install those extensions, and then down at the bottom, you'd see Cloud Code sign in. And you're going to sign in with your Google Cloud identity. But before we do that, there is one thing we have to disable, and it's more of just a nuisance. But we're going to disable here it is. We're going to disable the AI features in the Cloud Code extension. So Google keeps trying to put Gemini in things, and we're not going to use it because Gemini is a paying feature. And it's going to cause pop-ups for us. So we're just going to disable Duet AI. We're going to disable that, and Duet AI inline suggestions. We're going to disable that as well. And that should be it. So now click down here. We're going to click open, and it's going to ask us to authenticate over here. If we look over here, we're just like log in like that. We're going to go sign in. And it has authenticated us. There we go. Because we disabled the normally you get a pop-up saying that we couldn't enable the Gemini API, but because we disabled it, it shouldn't pop up anymore, which is good. Over here, we have the Cloud Code plugin, which allows you to see the various development environments for Cloud Code. We're not really going to use this. What we're going to do, or sorry, I should say down at the bottom, here's the terminal of the local machine. So like on this machine, you have access to PowerShell, bash, git bash, and it's like the normal command prompt. And what we're going to do is we're going to connect this session of VS Code to the Cloud Shell. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to press F1 to bring up the command palette. And we're going to type Cloud Code, and then we're looking for Cloud Shell. The Cloud Shell. And we want to open in Cloud Shell. And this is going to create an SSH tunnel using our Google identity, create a secure SSH tunnel to that VM that is running in the Google Cloud. So we're going to click that. It's going to ask about home. We're going to click home. And it should be connecting. So it's going to use part of the Google CLI to do the connection, and it wants to know which project we want to connect the shell to. So we're going to pick our Devcontainers project. And it's going to create the key and do the connection. So we're just going to wait for it here. Normally this doesn't take very long, which is good, but it should work. Waiting for your Cloud Shell. So it's doing the connection. VS Code has reloaded, and it wants us to accept the key. So we're going to continue. So there's an SSH key that we have to trust. And once you accept that trust, the plugin is going to install VS Code Server on that virtual machine that we were looking at in Cloud Shell, and VS Code is going to connect to that virtual machine. So now you'll notice on the side here that our remote path has changed to the Cloud Shell. So it's just projects that I was working on in the past. And if we go down to the corner here, we see that now my terminals have changed. So now I have access to the Linux version of PowerShell, Tmux, and again, to JavaScript debugger. So that part worked. Now, what we're going to do is we are going to download an open source project. So I have an open source project that's been configured with the dev container. The dev container allows me to do development work in this project. It's been customized and tailored, gives me the environment that I need to do that work. Anyone that launches that dev container is going to get the same set of features: Python, Go, Docker, and Docker Azure CLI. This is what anyone that's been working on this repo has been working on, been using to do that work. Excuse me. So what we're going to do here is we're going to click this green button, and we're going to click copy. We want to copy this path. So we're going to go copy, and we're going to go into the Cloud Shell, which is now running in VS Code. And we're going to do git clone, and then we're going to paste that path. And that is going to download a copy of that repository into that virtual machine that we're connected to remotely. And if we look at the folders here, now we have this folder here, the Proto Data Hub images. And it would have downloaded that dev container configuration file for us. You don't see it here just because the files are hidden. the dot files are hidden. But what we're now going to do is we're going to do, so right now we're doing remote development into SSH. We're going to go one step lower, one step deeper, and we're going to do remote development in a Docker container. So we're going to go into the Remote Explorer here, and this is the tunnel we're actually using right now. And we are going to go dev containers. And it's going to be like, all right, where is the dev container? So we're going to open the folder, that proto data hub images folder right there. And this is going to kickstart the process. So we're just going to click OK. This is going to kickstart the development process for our dev container. So we can see it down here on the side. It's going to restart this image, and it's going to open a connection as it's building our dev container. So you can see the dev container image. It's downloading our dev container.json, and in there are instructions on how to build that development environment. So we've gone that one step deeper. So we're going from the Windows desktop to the Linux desktop. From the Linux desktop, that is Cloud Shell. From the Linux desktop, we are now going to run a Docker image within the Linux desktop that we've pre-configured with build instructions. And what VS Code is going to do is it's going to do the networking and the tunneling all the way into that dev container, where it will load up our code so that we can now do development on our code in that virtual machine, in that Linux container. So it's a couple hops to get there. But like once you go through this process, you don't need to constantly do it every time. Like once the dev container has been built, you're automatically going to have access to it. Excuse me. So we're just going to wait for this to build, and then I will show you what that looks like in VS Code. Hopefully it doesn't take too long. It'll probably take forever. You know what? Like just to fill the silence, I don't think I mentioned it, but the virtual machine that is running in Cloud Shell, it's a basic machine. It's one CPU. I believe it's 2 gigs of RAM. Um, Google will allow you to do development in that virtual machine for, I believe it's 50 hours a week. And if the virtual machine detects inactivity for 40 minutes, the machine will auto shut down, so you don't waste those hours. But it's a pretty good tool for doing that kind of development work. One of the big benefits of using dev containers is that anyone that does development in that work does development on that project, they don't need to have these tools installed on their local machine, and because the dev container will load it for them. And if everyone is using the same dev container, you don't have to worry about the environment that the user, like if I install plugins and libraries on my work PC, someone else working on that project might not have those same plugins, and they'll have a different experience doing development versus what they would normally experience. Like if we're all using the same dev container, you don't have to worry about that local environment. It's everyone's working from the same level, the same plate. Yeah, it's still going. Takes a bit, so might as well show you the editor. So like while that's going, if you go to ide.cloud.google.com, you're going to see a similar environment, and it's basically doing the same thing. It's taking the open source version of VS Code, and it's going to provision. It's taking the open source version of VS Code and presenting it to you in a browser, so that you can do development. So this is similar but different. Again, you can just create new files, new text file, whatever. But this is off of the base image that Google provides from the Cloud Shell. Like this isn't a dev container. This is just another Linux virtual machine. And but it works all right. Gemini code. Yeah, I'm not going to use Gemini code. We're waiting for the dev container here to finish loading. Run in container. Come on, we're almost done. If you're interested in dev containers, GitHub also has what they call code spaces in dev containers. So on this green button, this is that project that we were working with the example. If you click on code spaces here, you can do the same thing where you'll create a code space, and then the code space is that it's the same idea. It's that virtual machine in the cloud, and it will load up that dev container, which is right there. And then it'll load up that dev container. Then you can do the same pattern. You can do that VS Code development by connecting your VS Code session to the virtual machine that GitHub is running. Other things to mention. Again, it's a different virtual machine that GitHub gives you. Different requirements. It'll allow you to set a pre-configured dev container. It'll allow you to specify different. That's not what I wanted. It'll allow you to specify different sizes of virtual machine. Because I've actually maxed out my hours on GitHub, I'm no longer able to change any of those settings. So that's why this is a good alternative. But all that to say, I think GitHub gives you like 120 hours on the free tier per month, where Google gives you 50 hours per week. So it's a little bit better on Google, but it's not as integrated as what you would experience with GitHub. So yeah, this is actually finished. So now we have our environment. Like we're inside that project. Like we have all the access to our Git tools. All the extensions would be installed if we had extensions configured in our dev file. In terms of environments, like, so again, now we see different terminals. So like ZSH, that's my go-to. And now we are remotely connecting through Google Cloud Shell into the Docker container that Google Cloud Shell is running. And then we're doing our development environment. We're doing our development in the Docker file that we've built, that we've tailored for ourselves. But yeah, like in a nutshell, like that's kind of the beauty of this is we have that consistent environment. We don't really care where it's running. I think that's the big takeaway is you don't care where your dev container is running as long as you can run it and connect to it. And just to show you, like if I close this and then run code again, it'll remember the last session that I was in, and it should allow me to connect to that session. And if it doesn't, this is going to be a brutal demo, but this normally works. So we'll take a look and see if it connects. Yeah, it did. So there's our files. Like it's just the first build that takes the longest. You don't have to do that long build every time. But again, it puts you right back into that development environment. And yeah, you just, I don't know, just make some changes. Git's going to pick it up. And like all of those features still exist. If there's extensions that are missing or like you want to add to your own, you can, you can add to them through the VS Code interface. But I think that in a nutshell, that should be it for the demo. If you have any questions, you can find me on the social medias or wherever. And yeah, hope you like the demo.